Unless you want to do which most of them can. Morning. Good morning. I hope everyone's ready to really do some thinking this morning. I've already advised Tom Terrific over here and Bonnie that they need to put on their thinking caps. And for those of you that are not old enough to know who Tom Terrific is, remember the show Captain Kangaroo? They had a little cartoon character named Tom Terrific. He kept a funnel on top of his hat, and when he would think, steam would shoot out of it, like that. And his dog was named, just had it in my head here, Manfred the Wonder Dog. And and every once in a while he would seek advice from Manfred the Wonder Dog. I've mentioned this before in lessons past in the years, and it's been quite a long time, but is anybody in here familiar with a photo that was taken, I won't say just when just yet, but has anybody in here ever heard of the pale blue dot photograph? No? No? Well, it's called the pale blue dot. I went ahead and looked it up on my information device here. This photo was taken 3.7 billion miles from Earth by an object that is still headed out to places unknown, actually. Photo was taken February 14th, 1990, and a scientist named Carl Sagan said, hey, turn the cameras around on this thing and take a picture of Earth. Now, when you look at this picture, depending on how big the picture is, on my phone right here, you can't even see the dot unless you zoom in. And I mean zoom in. And you think about this, that was 3.7 billion years, 3.7 billion miles back, okay, or away from Earth. That was taken by Voyager 1, which was a spacecraft that was launched in September 5th, 1977. And its primary mission was to go to Saturn and Jupiter and take a few photos and then just, okay, we'll just head it off out into nowhere, okay? That was 46 years, 10 months ago, as of August 15th. I just did a quick check on this data this morning, okay? Kelley, what in the world are you talking about? Why are you mentioning all this stuff? Well, hang with me. We'll get there on this, okay? On August 15th, the distance from Earth that the Voyager had traveled was 15.2 billion miles, okay? And from the sun, that's 15.3 billion miles. Pretty good distance. How long do you think it'd take you to do that if you hopped in your car and had enough gas and enough hot dogs and chips in the car to go that distance? The Voyager moves, it got gravity assist plus, it had rocket propulsion, but it got a gravity assist on some of the certain things. And the velocity in respect to the sun is 38,026.79 miles per hour. Now, I broke that down just a little bit here because, to get something into familiarity of distance, think of time in terms of miles per second. That's 10.562 miles per second. You imagine getting to McAllen in 1 second? Poof, you're there. That's pretty quick. This is kind of the speed that's being dealt with here. In terms of a light, one light time, they call that 22 hours and 45 minutes, the Voyager to Earth. Light time. Anybody in here know what the speed of light is? It's approximately 186,000 miles per second. Okay? In a year, that's what they're talking about. So, one light time, 22 hours, 45 minutes, Voyager to Earth, if we were going the speed of light. Now just think about this. It's been out there for 46 years, almost 47 years to cover this distance. And the scientists have figured out, for it to escape the gravitational pull of the sun, which would be where our solar system comes to an end, because that's how they base all this solar system stuff, these distances, because if we just stopped and we couldn't move, eventually we would start to be going back towards the sun due to the gravitational pull. So, and this is one of the things that got me about this. To escape gravitational pull of the sun, the Voyager will take nearly 40,000 years of flight time, about 2 light years. 40,000 years. How long will we be gone when that event happens if the Voyager doesn't get hit by something smashed out there in space, which I would suggest that there won't be anybody here alive at that point in time. unless you've got some sort of a miracle and you just want to live 40,000 years. That's, I don't know if I could take that much life. So, Kelley, why in the world are you mentioning these silly things here? Well, it's because of John, the first chapter, in the 5th verse. And I'll mention this when I read this 5th verse here. It says, the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not comprehend it. Now, have you ever given any consideration to what darkness is? What is light? If we turned off the lights in here right now, covered over the windows, and there was no light beaming through our windows here, would you call that darkness? I can't remember right off the top of my head. It just occurred to me. What was the old thing about, I think it was 3 blind men that had to reach up and touch an elephant, try and figure out what it was? Remember they all 3 of them gave a different answer to it? I suggest to you that every one of us in here would have a slightly different answer as to what is darkness. But what is darkness? What is being referred to here? Anybody want to say something about what is being referred to as the darkness? The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not comprehend it. Wow. Now, there's also a substitute word that's listed here in the New American Standard for comprehended. It also says overpower. Overpower it. What would be one of your greatest fears? At the end of your life, you're laying on your death's bed, and you know the end is near. What is your greatest fear? Death. Well, what's so scary about death? It's the end, isn't it, of all that we think we know. But what is it that scares you? What would scare you? Not knowing your ultimate fate? What if you're an atheist? An atheist means without any beliefs in that there's a God. So I have nothing to fear. And I think I'll be an atheist because I don't want to be scared. Don't want to be afraid of nothing. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not comprehend it. Didn't understand it. Couldn't overpower it. So why in the world would John write something like this? If we go back to the very beginning, let's just read from verse 1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Let me read something here that I wrote down. This came out of Kaufman, Brother Kaufman's commentary. He was talking about John 1:5. And he listed about, 7 or 8 scientists. And in this commentary, he said that we've come to find there's probably an equal number or more scientists that believe that there is a God than there are scientists that do not believe that. Now, how long that's ago Kaufman wrote that, I'm not sure. But this is what one of the scientists, his name is Irvin William Knobloch, graduated from Iowa State with a PhD, was a professional in natural science, teaching at Michigan State University. He wrote, I believe in God because mere chance could not account for the emergence of the electrons or protons. And for those of you that don't know, one of the things that we consider a basic particle is an atom. And they have yet to find all the particles that compose what an atom is made of. Okay? And that's some of the first parts of these are electrons or protons. And they're tiny. We can't see those things. In fact, we can't even see an atom except when it's assembled itself into what we see. Okay? So to continue, he says, or for the first atoms, or for the first amino acids. Amino acids, What are the building blocks? Human beings and flesh, those things. Okay? Or for the first protoplasm, or for the first seed, or for the first brain. I look in here, I see a bunch of human beings. There's one human being here, it's got a brick for a brain, and you're looking at him. Why would God put a brain in our heads? Especially one that had the ability to choose. You think darkness comprehends that? Can darkness overpower that? He says, I believe in God because his divine existence is the only logical explanation for things as they are. Go back to the brain for a minute. I think of a brain as like a thinking device. But the only way that you could grab a thought would be it's written down. Something like this or this thing here. You read it on a page, look at it on your phone, whatever device that is. But thoughts, why do they even originate? All of us run in here on an autonomic system. It's automatic. That blood flows. We got air to breathe, keeps us alive. But do we really give it any thought? Till maybe we're sick. Fix me, doctor. Hurry. I'm in pain. I don't like the way things are going here. Come back to the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not comprehend it. One of the ways of saying this is that I think we take life for granted. So much so to the point where I don't need to go to church on Sunday. Don't need to go to church on Sunday night, Wednesday. I don't need to go to church at all. What's the point? We all wind up in the same place. So let's continue again. Let's start back in verse 1 again. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things came into being through him. And apart from him, nothing came into being that has come into being. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not comprehend it or be overpowered by it. The light. We go back to laying on your deathbed. What does the light tell you about that scenario that's fixing to happen? Is there anybody in here that would be absolutely calm about what will happen on the last moment? You're fixing to find out. Right? Anybody in here ever known somebody that escaped? Like your grandparents, maybe? Our grandparents have been gone for, golly, 30, 40 years already. I remember my grandmother Roberts, and hopefully if we get a little bit further into this, I'll mention this again. But my grandmother Roberts got into believing in UFOs and all kinds of crazy things. And she would read some of the things from some of the ancients. And they had moved, her and her husband, my grandfather, had moved off to the mountains in the Lincoln National Forest in New Mexico. And my mom saw to it that she gave them a great big, one of these kind of glasses. I forget what they call frosted glass, but it was of an angel. And my grandmother, laying in her deathbed, would be looking up at that angel. And Mom was glad that she gave it to her. But the last 2 or 3 days of her life, my grandmother would not look at that angel. I've always had kind of a, pardon the way I say this, kind of a hairy feeling about what was going through my grandmother's mind. Because she knew She literally starved to death from cancer of the stomach. That's what happened to her. It was an awful way to die. But to stare at an angel, what does an angel symbolize? Well, when I think of angels these days, I think of the last chapter in Revelation 20, or Revelation 22, where the angel is speaking to John, and John is so impressed with this angel, he gets down on his knees to worship this angel. And the angel says, "Get up off your knees, because you are a servant just like me." So in being a servant, your servitude, I've wondered, did my grandmother think about what she did with her life? Because I distinctly remember before I got baptized, I was staying with them, and the entire family pretty much attacked me. You don't need to be baptized, you can get baptized in the Methodist church. It's just as good as any other church. I stood my ground, and I was baptized in a small congregation of the Church of Christ. But that thought goes back to the last thoughts my grandmother had, because she knew the Bible. She was an intelligent woman, maybe too intelligent. What were her last thoughts? Your last thoughts. Well, here we go. We're going to find out. So, with all of this, I bring up this business about Voyager 1 and the pale blue dot to put things into perspective of just how vast darkness can be. Now, I don't know that John wrote about darkness in such a fashion as this, but I use this as a frame of reference of just how dark things can be if you let them. Okay? And if you go without reading this, the darkness can reach pretty deep depths, can't it? Yeah. Mankind proves that over and over and over again. Why else would that be there? It says, the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not comprehend it. Comprehend what? The light? What about the saving grace of light? What did we expect when we were baptized? You expect a big floodlight to come on and you're in the light. It didn't happen for me. I just remember I was real cold because it was a cold morning when it happened. And they didn't have a warmed up baptistry. But the light, I'll say this, the light has been a gradual growth in my mind. And what does the light steer you away from? Well, I'll give you an example here. The average person walks at a rate of about 2.5 to 3 miles per hour. You get up, you need to go get a drink of water out of the refrigerator. You've got a nice modern convenience in there. You walk from your bedroom, totally in the dark, don't want to turn the light on, I know the way, and you're walking at about 3 miles an hour, and bang, you hit your left little toe on the side of the coffee table out in the middle of the living room. How much does that hurt at 3 miles per hour? What does that tell you? First thing is, dadgummit, I should have turned on the light. I wouldn't have bumped into this. That was a case of you didn't use your good common sense about things, or you were confident that you could get there without tearing your toe off. My wife, about 2 years ago in Arizona, got up in the dark, went through. She didn't have to travel even 10 feet to go to the bathroom that was next to the bedroom she was laying in. And what did she do? I think it was on her right foot. She laid that little toe 90 degrees to her foot. Can you imagine seeing that toe looking down? What have I done to myself? This is horrible. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. We got to go to the hospital. What should she have done? At least turned on one light somewhere to see the way. The way. Does anybody remember what the first Christians called the church? Or what they were called? Followers of the way. The way to what? Light. Redemption. That's part of the way. So, with this, well, I'll just drop down to verse 9 here. I wasn't going to read this yet. But again, this is, BC had asked me to do lessons on principles and the first fundamentals of being a Christian. And this is what should be being taught to people, is the fundamentals of this, of why you become a Christian. It's not just because life will be easier. Is that a wrong statement? Is life any easier for a Christian than it is anybody else in the world? I don't think so. I don't think so. There are a lot of people who had their heads lopped off for being a Christian. Terrible things have happened to many, many Christians. So in verse 9 it says, there was the true light, which coming into the world enlightens every man. He was in the world, and the world was made through him, and the world did not know him. Do you really know the first thing about how you were constructed inside your mom from the very beginning of it? Yeah, we got scientists out there who can kind of give us a roadmap of what goes on. And now we know a little bit more about the physical parts of things. But watching a young child grow, we're getting the benefit of being able to, thanks to phones, we get lots and lots of photos and videos of our young granddaughter growing up. And I'm just impressed at how quickly the human mind can pick up ideas and thoughts. Just numbers, 1 through 10. Things like that. The growth process. Verse 11, he came to his own, and those who were his own did not receive him. Who is John speaking about here? Well, he's speaking about Jesus, but who were those that did not receive him? Even the chief priests. Maybe a couple, but even those didn't recognize what was going on here. He came to his own, and those who were his own did not receive him. But as many as received him, to them he gave the right to become children of God, even to those who believe in his name, who were born not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but of God. What do you think the light made them think? How long did it take Peter before he was finally convinced about what was going on? A boatload of fish? A few other things, didn't it? But what about the rest of the apostles? What about that man that had been dead for a pretty good while, to the point where he already smelled and he came walking out? Raised from the dead. But didn't it take another person to come back from the dead before the belief really started to form in their head as to who are we dealing with here? The guy that was literally murdered, he comes back a couple of 3 days later, just like he said he would. Just like he said he would. You think that, which one impressed them more? That he came back, or that he told them, I'll be back. Just wait a little while and I'll be right back. Which one would impress you more? Well, probably the physical side of us say, yeah, human being that we can reach out and touch. Or he would allow us to touch him at that point in time. What did Thomas say? We still have that saying that sticks with us even today. The light. The light. So, I've got about 5 minutes here. For those of you that don't think I know anything about computers or anything, I copied and pasted this right straight into this thing here. And I did this for my own benefit because I go back through my notes from time to time to see how stupid I was at that point in time or how ignorant I was. What didn't I know 5 years ago compared to what I know now? Sometimes I go, wow, how grossly ignorant were you? It comes down to this. If you don't read this, you will stay grossly ignorant. Our Creator wants us to learn and grow to our benefit. And one of the reasons why I talked about the pale blue dot picture and this mess with the Voyager and all these distances and stuff. Just because you're a Christian doesn't mean you're a dumbhead. And if you can come across in speaking to some of your friends or whoever, and you can come across to them and present some science to them of some sort. Use some of these facts to the advantage to bring these people to the light. Help bring them out of the darkness. Because if I understand this correctly, the darkness, it wants you and it doesn't want you to get out of that darkness, does it? We've paid the penalty for that since the first two human beings walked the earth. They willingly accepted a lie. So, in this, I won't mention who this commentator is just yet, but his comments on 1:5 were some of the best comments I saw throughout reading this man's comments. It says, here we meet another of John's key words, darkness. And in terms of the Greek word, it's scotia or skotos. This word occurs 7 times in the gospel. To John, there was a darkness in the world that was as real as the light. The darkness is hostile to the light. The light shines in the darkness, but however hard the darkness tries, it cannot extinguish it. Would you agree with me that there's a lot of forces right here in these United States of ours that are trying to extinguish the flame of Christianity? But is it anything new? No. They tried their level-headed best. They thought they were winning the battle when they killed Jesus. But what did it do? I came back and I'm even stronger now than I was before. The light shines in the darkness, but however hard the darkness tries, it cannot extinguish it. Sinning man loves the darkness and hates the light because the light shows up too many things. I'll use politicians as an example here because it's all politics and stuff. But how hard do politicians try to hide the fact that maybe they're taking a little money behind their back so they can sway something for somebody that's giving them that money? Now, I don't care which side of the aisle they're on, it goes on. But the thing is, it's always going on. Again, I'll remind you, God tells us, don't be lovers of money. It does things to you. I've been there, done that. Hopefully I learned my lessons with a lot of that. Sinning loves the darkness and hates the light because the light shows up too many things. It may well be that in John's mind there is a borrowed thought here. John, as we know, was prepared to go out and to take in new ideas. If by doing so he could present and commend the Christian message to men. What he's talking about here is some of these people can present what you might consider a reasonable argument, but can you counter it? You can't if you don't know how or you don't know what to say. Because again, it goes back to my argument with people. You'll be cowardly because you don't want to be embarrassed because you don't know something if you are pressed to defend yourself about the gospel. Without the knowledge, you're best just to shut up because you don't want people to think you're stupid or an ignoramus or a caveman, so to speak. Armed with this knowledge, behaviors, all these things are wrapped into the Bible. Armed with it, you arm yourself with this, and you stand a chance to maybe save someone's soul. Not you directly, but this is one of the things that's expected of us. This is part of servitude, not just all the mechanical, I'll do this, that, and the other. But one of the main things about being a servant of God is to preach the word. The great Persian religion, Zoroastrianism, and that's what my grandmother Roberts had started to read. I remember seeing some of the books laying around going, what is this? I didn't know what she was reading. The great Persian religion, Zoroastrianism, had at this time a very great influence on men's thoughts. Now he's talking about when Christ was alive. He says it believed that there were two great opposing powers in the universe, the God of the light and the God of the dark. I can't pronounce these names. Arihim, I can't say it, and Ormazud. I just can't say those words. This whole universe was a battleground in the eternal cosmic conflict between the light and the dark, and all that mattered in life was the side a man chose. Again, we come back to this eternal battle. And you think in Acts 17, where Paul says, this unknown God you guys have over here. This is the God that made everything. Think how common this is throughout these areas. Okay? These are the Persians. This whole universe is a battleground in the eternal cosmic conflict between the light and the dark, and all that mattered in life was the side a man chose. Would choose. And I'll read one last little paragraph here. So John is saying, into this world there comes Jesus, the light of the world. There is a darkness which would seek to eliminate him, to banish him from life, to extinguish him. But there's a power in Jesus that is undefeatable. The darkness can hate him, but it can never get rid of him. As has truly been said, not all the darkness in the world can extinguish the littlest flame. The unconquerable light will in the end defeat the hostile dark. John is saying, choose your side in the eternal conflict and choose right. I suspect that everybody in here hopes that they have chosen correctly, chosen right. I know that my choice. Now, the bad thing is sometimes my choices of some of the things I choose to do with my life are not right. But where is something that Jesus has promised us that comes into, gives us some comfort? What is that word? Starts with a G and ends with an E. Grace. Grace. I've got other comments I'd make, but I'm going to stop there because I want you to see if you can answer the riddle. Okay? I see a few smiles on faces here about the riddle. This is a short one. And this deals with monetary matters. Okay? Who was the best financier in the Bible? Who was the best financier in the Bible? Who is the best banker? We don't have an instant answer on this one. Last week, I couldn't believe how quick Surrey got it. He just, pow. Who is the best financier in the Bible? Anybody want the answer today? I see someone looking it up. All right, I'll give you the answer right quick. His name was Noah. He floated his stock, animals, while the whole world was in liquidation. I thought that was a pretty nice little riddle. So we'll stop there. If I've said anything that's wrong, an error, anything that you want to take me to task on, please let me know. Thank you.